Good morning, everyone. How are we doing? We are getting started. I'm making sure that word gets out on the stream so that we can get to focusing on the main event. No point in doing this if we don't have the lovely members of the chat hanging out with us. Especially given that this is a Bancroft book. You can't miss out on having the chat around from Michael Bancroft. Hopefully we get Mo showing up. I'm working on getting him in the as our moderator right now. But let's see. Let's see, do we have anyone in the chat hanging out with us? We got Chris Fisk. Hail. Welcome, Chris. How we doing? All right. Let's see. Man, I found him the other day too. Like I found Mo's channel. I managed to do it so that I can add him to this silly moderator position on there. Well, I mean, hopefully he shows up. We've got a Frog G in the chat. What's this now? Some sort of Lucent? Yeah. And then Chris Fisk is saying the People's CG Royal Rumble champion Bancroft. I hope Danny hasn't done anything to him. Yeah. Well, I gave Michael a link, so if he's able to come hang out, he's more than welcome to. But you know, that's obviously going to be, you know, his deal. But we're going to give a few minutes for some more people to come in, get some more viewership on this. What's your impression of the special treatment done on the Lucent cover? So to be fair, it's in the bag. I'm gonna be taking it out of the bag so that you guys can see the UV spot. It is very pretty. The book looks great. We've got Genuine Comics hanging out in the chat. Hello, Dave. Hello, Genuine Comics. It's always a good time to see you. Thanks for coming to hang out. We've got a few people going now. If somebody sees Mo Biggs around in another chat, be sure to let him know that we're talking the Lucent, and he will appear more than likely. I'm still trying to figure out this whole moderator thing, but you know, we'll get there. What I need to do is I need to get Frog G on the moderator list, because that's definitely something that should be happening, because Frog G is is one of the kings of moderation on these things. So let's see. Man, I feel like I'm supposed to be good at this stuff because it's like I am technically a millennial, and so like this is supposed to be something that okay. Am I not allowed to add moderators? Why are you not letting me do stuff? All right, we'll figure that out for another time, I guess. Let's focus on the stream. All right. So we've got some good people here. We've got a decent enough amount of people here. You know, it's not about it's not necessarily about the quantity of people, it's about the quality, and I think we've got some quality here. So this is Nine Realms Reviews. My name is Michael Oden. For those of you who aren't aware, I am the creator and founder of Nine Realms Publishing, and I write the majority of the books that we do. I've got my career started with a book called Elysian Fields, and we recently made some pretty big headway with our recent book, The Embrace. So, make sure that you guys are following us on social media. So we obviously click the subscribe on the YouTube channel if you haven't done that, but we're on Facebook at Elysian Fields _0. And, we have a good time here. And so the big thing that I'm trying to do here is we see a lot of comic review channels and everything like that. Not a lot of them are indie focused. And on top of that, the ones that are, they're content based for sure, which is definitely my whole thing. Is, I'm as a writer, I'm going to be taking a look at how the story is. Like, the art is going to be something that, like, I can talk a little bit about, but that's not really my strongest suit, as while I dabble in art, I'm certainly no professional. So anything that looks better than what I can do, I generally go, ooh, that's pretty. So I'm not particularly good on that. But what I do that I think separates what we try and do here from other shows is we go through at the end and look back at the campaign, and we analyze the economy of the tier classes, the economy of the tier that I backed at, and see if there is anything that could have been done to make things more successful. This is Michael Bancroft's Lucent. So, like, what he did clearly worked. I mean, he had over 1,000 backers and reached ridiculous amounts of money. I think that the end total was 47,000 USD, and in dollar reduce, that must make him a millionaire. Yeah, the Lucent does prove you don't need an expensive logo for your book. That is correct. It's very simplistic. It's just about good presentation and good marketing. And sometimes that simplicity really does work for a logo. You don't necessarily always need it to be like ridiculously ornate or anything like that. Something about his campaign I find puzzling. What do you find puzzling, Frog? Let's see. Hold on. I think I might have figured out something. Sorry. My let's see. Sorry about that, guys. I got a very interesting message that kind of needed some attention. I don't mean to do that on stream. I know that that's not really professional, but we do what we've got to do. All right. Heading back to the Lucent, though. We have a lot of Michael Bancroft is a good friend, and I owe a lot of where I am to him. He's helped me out in promoting a lot, and so it was very it was very it's been a very exciting process watching him go through and get this book done. It's been really good. It was really exciting when I got it in the mail. You know, I was seeing everybody else get it, and because it's from Australia, it took like forever and a half, and it was like the biggest wait. And so the big question is did it live up to the wait? And yes, it did. It's a really, really solid book. We've got it right here. We're gonna pop that open here in a second. But you know, I honestly just want to take this quick second, as much as we do and we joke and this, that, or the other, to say congratulations. Michael Bancroft finally got the Lucent out there. It's fulfilled. Proof of concept is there now, and that's great. This is what we want. We want more indie creators doing stuff. We want to see the books get out to people. Danny is messaging him, don't review Bancroft's book or I'll make another hit on a member of the Crack Pack. Oh no. Okay. Well, anyways, so that is not what that message was about. But if Danny is trying to threaten, we're just going to go on ahead and release a statement that we don't negotiate with terrorists. Anyway, so here we go. So we've got the Lucent. Chris was asking if how the spot cover looks, and like there you go, you kind of see it, the light gleaming off of it. It's it's a very pretty, very very aesthetically pleasing cover. That UV spot gloss really does make a huge difference, and I'm going to have to figure out how to do something like this on one of my books. And that's one of the fun things about this, being another indie creator, is you see when somebody else does something well, you go, well, now I have to do that, but I've got to do it better. I've got to figure out a way to one up, because that's how you build. That's how you keep going. So anyways, starting with the Lucent. Okay. So the interior art on the book, you know, I know that we give Michael shit about his ability to draw hands, but I mean, the interior art here is just absolutely gorgeous. It's the colors bring the setting to life very vibrantly. A majority of this takes place in London, but there's also this kind of surreal thing of you're not really sure what's dream and what's reality. And that's very much kind of the point. I heard somebody once try and like compare this to Inception, and I can definitely get a few vibes of that in here. As far as the story is concerned, it's very good. The Frog G was talking, is saying the cityscapes are insane, and that's correct. Like 100%. That is absolutely gorgeous work on. I mean, you just look at this and you can kind of see. Is this when they're in France? I think so. So you can kind of see like the Parisian cityscapes, and you know, I think he's got a pretty good one when they're in London as well. I mean, the amount of research that he probably did on the layouts. This is probably like one of my favorite pages of the book. I made sure that it was in the thumbnail. As most know, I'm a big history buff with a particular focus towards the classical period. But I mean, as I said, like these are just absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, I mean, just there you go, another cityscape of the West End of London. And he did this this fun thing when the story ends, where you know he does these character interviews, which from a writing standpoint is something that is really cool, because one of the big things that you learn when you're starting out writing is there's this whole creative process when you're building your characters, and the exercise is called, you know, effectively like what's in their closet, right? Did Bancroft draw upon Australian Aboriginal religious beliefs of the waking and dream worlds between two real worlds? The Abos believe the dream time is the true world. I think that's a great question for Bancroft. I certainly didn't notice any of that when I was reading it, but that doesn't mean it's not there. And this is one of those things where I kind of one of these days I'm going to do one of these reviews and have the person come on and chat a little bit about some things. Because that's a great question that, that very well could play into it, but that's not something that I necessarily know the answer to that question. I am not Michael Bancroft, despite also being named Michael. It's not like we share a hive mind or anything like that. But anyways, the story of the Lucent is very good. It's very well paced, and it leaves you wanting more, which is what you want in a comic. But there is one big problem, and it's a problem that I see a lot in crowdfunded books, is that when we are building up the hype for our crowdfunded books, we don't just talk about the what's going on in our specific book. We talk about a lot of what's going on in that world and everything to try and get people excited and bring people in. And what this can do, especially when you have something like the Lucent, where and this was not done with any poor intent or anything like that. I think this was a result of Michael leveled up his art, and he wanted to make sure that the art in the book consistently reflected the professional level of his best that he could give the audience. But since this has been something that people have been waiting for about a year and a half, and since there's been this enigma as to what the Lucent is about, and the majority of what we've heard Michael talk about has been pretty vague and all-encompassing for what his plans are for the entire story. When you read this book, it leaves you wanting more, but there's also a kind of frustration with that, where there are almost more questions that you had going out than going in. And that's not an inherently bad thing. And in fact, that's going to guarantee that a lot of people come back for another book. That's the whole point of comic book mediums. Is, Stan Lee once said that there are no third acts in comics. You have first act, second act, and then you have falling action, but there's never any resolution. It just ties into setting up the next storyline, and so you revert back to the first act. And the Lucent is definitely one of those things that does that. But with how long the first book took to get out there, I think the only negative criticism that I could see people having is wishing that there was more, wishing that they had some more answers, wishing that they got to see a bit more of things. And that's one of the big hurdles to overcome from the crowdfunding perspective, because, when you're bringing in your audience, you're trying to get them as hyped as they can possibly be. That's the whole point, is you're trying to get them to convert them from interested onlookers to investors and supporters and customers. And Bancroft does this very well. His show is indicative of that. He Chris Fisk says keep the audience hungry. It's like, yeah. But there's also to provide a little bit of devil's advocate to that. You want to keep them hungry but content, like they're willing to wait for the next meal. The only worry that I have is that there might be some people that read this and they're still hungry, but they weren't content. But they're hungry in a way where it's like it took him a year to get to this point. Well, what am I going to get in the next book? And that's the only real worry that I have. I don't think that it's really going to affect Michael much. He's an outstanding promoter. The book is top-notch quality. There's no doubt about that. Between the art and the story alone, I definitely give this book like a solid 9 out of 10. It was a very good read. I read it in about the first time I read it in about an hour. And I've read it two more times since then. It holds up. It holds up very well. It's just one of those things where, you look at stuff and you look at where it ends. And this book, if we look at like the classical plot outline, where you have setting, rising action, climax, falling action, conclusion. This book really only does setting. It's like prologue plus the setting of your standard plot structure. When the book ends, I would say is like if I were to make any predictions, the next book, which I know that he's got the title up in here. He says that it's going to be continued in. All right. So it says to be continued in Lucent Painted Death. All right. So Painted Death, if I were to make any predictions about that, is I would expect Painted Death to, it's obviously going to pick up where this one left off, but it's going to be rising action and establishing the setup for the climax. Do you think that will create the Hulu versus Netflix effect with streaming services? Netflix gives it to you all at once to binge. Hulu parcels it out over long periods between episodes. Not necessarily. Potentially, yes. I think that there might be a few people that'll just be like, I really liked the first book, but at the rate that the story is going, I'm just going to wait until, he has like 2 or 3 more of these out and then do a catch-up game. But like the other big thing is with the crowdfunding model, these products aren't cheap. Doing a catch-up tier for a lot of campaigns is like at minimum like $50. Yeah, no, and that's what I'm saying is like I'll just wait to the end of the series before I buy the first book, and that's what I'm saying is like potentially yes, but I don't know. Like the crowdfunding market is very different. It's not like you can just go into a comic store and pick up these books. There are people that are trying to work at that, and I'm one of them. But these books are the crowdfunding comic book market is based around this premise of high value, high quality, and exclusivity, right? Like Bancroft, if you were to use crowdfunding as your continued model to sustain you in your career, right? If crowdfunding is going to be the avenue by which you do every book and you aren't looking at going into retailers or doing anything like that, every single one of these books has to be a certain page count so that you can justify the pricing of $25 a book. So it's more cost effective for the crowdfunding backers to back as the books comes out, because by the time he gets to the end of the series, the catch-up tier is going to be ridiculously expensive, more than likely. Like unless he offers a trade collection of it all, then it's going to be more cost efficient for everybody to go and just back per campaign. And I think that that's what a lot of the crowdfunding strategy, what plays into a lot of the crowdfunding strategy is like, oh, well, you missed out on the first book, no big deal. You can catch up. But as you're playing catch up, the tiers get more expensive and the longer that you go with that, the higher that price tick goes. And I think most people are aware of that. And so the question is this is either going to force people to do one of two things. They're either going to purchase the next book and the books following to make sure that they keep up, and maybe they just don't read them until all of them are out, or to just not back at all. And that's the worst case scenario, where it's like, well, I really liked the first book, but I didn't like that I didn't really have any of my questions answered. He teased a whole bunch of stuff that didn't show up in the book. This is something that I talked about on the last review. I talked about The 13th Labor by David Gay. And I had talked about how they had a character on the cover that was so they're actively a part of the marketing, but this character doesn't appear at all in the book. Given the amount of story that has been put forward. And that creates a problem. When we're doing our marketing, it's very important that when we're setting our the audience expectations of what they can, what they should be experiencing in our book, that we, I don't want to say temper them, because like you want them to be excited, but you need to be careful about what you disclose. And so like, great example, and it relates to the Lucent, is that Bancroft had talked to me at one point during his streams because Gilgamesh appears in my Elysian Fields series. And he talks about how, Gilgamesh is going to be appearing, I guess, at some point in the Lucent. And so me having that knowledge, I'm reading the Lucent and I am fixated on when's Gilgamesh going to show up. Like I'm really excited to see how Michael handles writing Gilgamesh and comparing it to how I wrote him, but he doesn't show up in this book, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But it's one of those things that, when you are getting people excited about your product, there has to be management about the information that you allow people to understand what your product is, like what to expect from the Lucent, what to expect from any of that. And that's the only real flaw that I see with this book. It's very well written. Michael Bancroft really shows himself as a jack of all trades. The art here is very good. The color work is very good. The storytelling is well paced. The narrative is gripping. I definitely want more of the Lucent, and I think most people do too. But the only downside I could see is somebody reading it and feeling like they just spent $25 on a teaser for a movie that they're excited for, instead of for movie tickets, and that's the only hurdle that this really has to overcome. I mean, I've got nothing but positive things to say about both this book and Michael. Michael's a fantastic guy. I love his platform. He's really fun. He's done nothing but help me since I got into this, and I consider him a really good friend. And this book, it's always good when your friends do something like this, because it's one of those things where when you're a friend to somebody, you kind of feel obligated, even if it's crap, to be like, oh, it has its merits. Like, you try to focus on the good, but like with a product like the Lucent, it really is. It lives up. It was a great read. I tore through it super quickly. I even read that his little his mini floppy that he did along with it. I read both of those within an hour and a half. And I had gotten the head sketch tier and everything. Like, I was very, very happy with this book. And I mean, like, just to look again, just look at this artwork. I know that everyone's probably seen all of this like a million times by looking through the campaign. But I mean, you see this. Oh, another tiny tidbit that, as a historian nut, like, made me fall in love with this book within like the first page was, you have this setting, which takes place in 3800 BC, and rather than call it just being like the Middle East or Saudi Arabia or whatever, he calls it the Levant, circa 3800 BC. Yeah, no, and so Chris is saying, so what there's really good, but you need more. Is it because it ends in a cliffhanger, or it just doesn't feel like it encapsulated the experience? Taking notes. I don't think that, like, ending in a cliffhanger isn't the problem. That's the nature of comic books. You know, everything that we do in comic books is based on cliffhangers. When you're looking at setting up the anatomy of your page work, every single time you hit an even page, or every single time you hit an odd page, rather, it should be something dynamic that makes you want to turn the page. Every single thing in this medium should be, I want to keep flipping, because, like, that's the whole point. It's a visual medium. So, like, you have, like, here's a perfect example, right? So you have this is the even page, right? Where they're kind of the bad guy shows up and is confronting the good guy, and they're having a conversation, and it's not especially dynamic. You kind of set something up there in that final panel down at the bottom of the page, but then you turn the page, and I don't know why I'm doing it this way. All right. So, as I said, you have this page here on the left is pretty basic, right? Like, basic formatting of the panel structure. Like, it's still very visually pleasing and everything, but there's nothing really going on. But then you move on to the next page. You've got a fight. You've got one of the guys is out cold. The bad guy's over top of him and is about to swing the pipe, and then you just get this streak of blood. This is going to do what? This is going to make you want to go and flip. And then you get this beautiful 2-page spread. So, of course, you're going to do what? And flip. Every single thing that we do in comics is based based around getting the audience to turn the page. And the Lucent does this very well. So ending with the cliffhanger isn't the problem. It was that expectations had been so greatly built because of Michael's prolonged marketing. Because, as I said, it took about a year. It took a year, maybe even a year and a half, to get this book out to people, which, he explained about like halfway through. He recognized that his art could be better. And so he went back and he redid a whole bunch of pages, which I commend him for. I would rather have somebody go through and recognize that they could do better and put out the best thing that they know that they can than just phone it in, especially on a first product. Like everything that Michael does from here on out is going to be judged by this book. Did it live up to this? And so the big problem at the end is this book is great. It does everything. Yeah. So gotcha. It sounds like the hype versus expectation issue that happens with video games as well. Yes, no, and that's very much what the problem is there is so much hype around this book. And it completely lives up in a way because it's everything that was promised to us. But through the extended exposure and because Michael has talked so much about what he is trying to do with the Lucent and has expanded so much on the concept itself through his promotion, you wanted to see more than what you got. And so this feels like, and this isn't a small book either. Like this is a hefty book. Like this is a solid book, and we'll get to talking about the economy. Frog G says, "Yeah, no pressure, Bancroft." Like this is a solid book, but even still, at its massive page count, it still only feels like a teaser to the overall thing. Probably, but the sad part is that again, when you're looking at the Chris Fink, so that everyone, in case there are people that aren't able to look at me bringing the comments up on the stream, and are just listening. Chris Fisk writes in and he's asking, do you think it would be a different experience if you had never heard of the book and just picked it up with a blind reading? Probably. But the sad thing is again, that's not really possible with the crowdfunding market. In this crowdfunding scene, on Indiegogo, on Kickstarter and everything, all of the projects that we're going in and we're backing, we're not doing so blindly. It's because we got to hear the creator go on a stream and talk about their book. We followed this creator. We've gotten to know this creator. We know what to expect from everything. And this is actually something that I had to learn even between Elysian Fields issue 0 and Elysian Fields Pyramid Gambit, the first part of our actual story, where during the 0 issue, I talked a lot about what Elysian Fields was going to be. But it was a 0 issue. It's the prologue. Like the whole tournament of the gods and the underworld being fought by heroes from epic myth. That doesn't really play a part of the 0 issue until the end. He doesn't even get to the arena until like the last 5 pages of the book. And so there were people that were like, oh man, like I was really excited to see the tournament. And then you got there and it just ends. And I was like, well, yes, it's a 0 issue. It's a prologue. But then in Pyramid Gambit, we get to the actual tournament. And so I was able to focus a lot more because it was my second book and because there was already an interest in Elysian Fields. Chris Fisk writes in again, crowdfunding seems to have a huge external component that affects the product, which can have little bearing on the quality of the actual product, which is true. I mean, like at the end of the day, us in crowdfunding, we're going out there, we're connecting with the community, we're trying to get this in front of them, and we're trying to excite them, we're trying to get them to want to read it, and that sometimes means giving the audience a window into the story they wouldn't necessarily have if they had just seen it on a spin rack, if they had just seen it at their local comic book store and thought, oh, this looks cool, I'll check it out. And that's one of those things where it's a very that's one of those things where it's a very interesting conundrum to overcome. And as I said, Michael Bancroft has done just a tremendous job not only at producing this book, but building his platform. You know, Bancroft and I got into the crowdfunding scene relatively similar times. I think the zero issue of Elysian Fields was up and running during the first 60 days of the Lucent. So we're in this. We've been in this side of the industry for a while, and since then, Michael's built up his own YouTube channel. You know, like the Bancroft channel has what? It has 2.48 thousand subscribers with 491 videos. You know, like, and that's a huge part of crowdfunding, and that cannot be understated, because there is a measure of popularity when it comes down to the crowdfunding game. It's not just about the quality of the product; it's about the ability of the creator to connect with the audience and have fun and do what they need to do to push the book. And Bancroft does that in spades. And so with that being said, let's take a look at the Lucent campaign. You know, it is closed now. So if you haven't gotten this book, if you made that mistake and did not get this book, because it was definitely worth it, then you can't get it from here. I'm fairly certain that he will have the first book available on the next campaign for anyone that, for whatever reason, missed out. So this is the Lucent, the Great Waking Dream graphic novel. It raised $47,375 USD by 1,022 backers. Fantastic work for our first campaign. You know, the campaign itself is very professional, really showcases the product off well. But what we're doing here specifically is to talk about the economy of tiers. All right. So the featured tier, and this might not have even been the featured tier, but it's the first one that's listed up here. Oh man, they don't even have the tier that I had, that I got when I backed. So the tier that they have up at this point is for 34 AUD, which is for $25. You get a signed book plus extras. So you get the Lucent Waking Dream Painted Death preview comic, Ella gloss print, water gloss print. I mean, that's a great value, and that's the basic tier that he's got going up on the campaign. It's got great value to it, which is very important. Like, I see so many campaigns where they either undervalue their product or they put a price tag that on something that doesn't match the value of what the customer's getting. Like it was always a big pet peeve of mine, is that in a lot of early crowdfunding campaigns, you'd have these guys selling the original pieces of art, but if you purchased an original page of art, it didn't get you a copy of the book automatically. And I don't care how much you pay. I don't care how much you commissioned an artist for that work. You know, you're effectively being paid for something that's already been done, that doesn't really cost you much, and that the cost of shipping is handled on the side. The least you can do is give these people a copy of your book for throwing a few $100s at your campaign, or even in some cases $1,000. You know, for some of those higher tier creators, there are people that they're able to get away with charging like $1,000 for a page of traditionally done interior, or cover. You know, like, I think that that's something that, you know, a lot of crowdfunders have gotten wind of. I don't see it as much anymore, but when I first came in, there were a lot of people that were doing these original art tiers. And the big thing that always prevented me from backing, even if I had the money to afford it, was a lot of these guys weren't offering the book alongside the art. Like, you were just getting the art, you weren't getting the book. And I'm like, I'm not going to drop a few $100 for the piece of art and not have the book. And I shouldn't have to pay extra for the book if I'm paying you a few $100s for the art. You know, I have actively allowed for a recoupment of your investment of at least that page. Me as an individual, you know, I should be given a copy. I should be like a part of that value should be that I get a copy of the book. But as I said, that's far less of an issue now as it was when I first got into this. I would see a lot of, and what was crazy is that it was never the smaller campaign guys. It was always the campaigns that had like hundreds of thousands of dollars were doing this whole thing where it would be like, yeah, you can buy a page of original art, but you don't get the book with it. And I'm like, how does that fucking make sense? Like, Chris Fisk comments, yeah, the book is the product. The artwork material is supplementary. This is why add-on bricks exist. Exactly. Like I have no problem paying for original art, but if I pay for original art, I better have a fucking, I better have something to show for it. You know, like I better have your book. Like, otherwise, what was the point? Okay, I have something nice that I can frame up and potentially hang up as a collector. That's cool, but I now don't get to experience your product, even though even though I played a pivotal role in bumping your numbers up. That doesn't connect with me. But anyways, as far as this campaign is concerned, Michael Bancroft knows what he's doing. He's a professional, and he's been at this for a while. Like, the Lucent's his first crowdfunding book, but like he's been working in the periphery of this industry for a hot minute. And I'm really glad for the success that he's had. Like, this is a tremendous book, a great campaign. And I like it. Like, I couldn't be happier for him. He, as I said, Bancroft has done a lot for me in my time getting in on this. The Bancroft bump is like a super legitimate thing. So being brought on to his show, being continuously brought on to his show, is very humbling. And so whenever Bancroft decides to watch this, congratulations, man, you knocked it out of the park. You did a really good job. The only note that I have is that I really wanted more, and that's not the worst problem to have. It means that when you're doing the next book, just make sure that now that people kind of know the brand, the story you're trying to tell, I guess my only advice would be, and you can take this or leave it because you've been doing way better than I have. Chris Fisk says, yeah, he's good people. I owe him for being invited onto his show. It's a great experience. The only note that I have for him, and he can take this or leave it because frankly, he doesn't need my help. He's made more than all of my campaigns combined. And on one book. So like he's got this down. But the only piece of advice that I would have is when he's marketing the next one, since the Lucent Waking Dream has delivered and been proof of concept and it's out to backers, focus the marketing of the next book on the next book, not the entire concept, but specifically what the audience is going to get from The Painted Death. Because with how broad the marketing was for Waking Dream, the only thing that I fear could have been done that could have been perceived as a negative is the very high expectations from your build-up, and that the book ends so abruptly when you don't want it to. You want it to keep going, which is, again, that's what you want in a comic. That's what the goal is that at the end of each one of these things, unless you're at the conclusion of a mini series or something like that, it should always be to make the audience want more and want to get the next book. And you've done that, man. You've done just a tremendous job. And I'm looking forward to Painted Death. I will be there for that. If you guys didn't back the Waking Dream, make sure that you're on the Painted Death. I don't know if the mailing list is up for that yet. But if it is, definitely make sure that you're on it. I'll be making sure that I'm on it. But we're at the point in the show where it switches from being a review and turns into some shameless self-promotion. We're going to remove that. So, as I said, I am the creator and founder of Nine Realms Publishing, and Nine Realms Publishing has a lot of stuff going on. On Webtoons, we are currently doing our Errand of the Sable Knight webtoon comic, which updates every other Thursday. I think the next update is day after tomorrow at 4 p.m. Errand of the Sable Knight is our kind of take on Arthurian lore, and we've been getting a really good response on that. The artwork is being done by Dino Agor and Avery Ferdinand, who have just absolutely knocked it out of the park. And then, we also have Elysian Fields doing updates on Webtoon. So if you missed those first two books, you can catch up on there. But the real exciting thing that we have going on outside of that, obviously, is we're doing our mailing list for the Nine Realms catalog. So I'm relatively new into the industry, but I have done a lot. I've done a lot so far. And for those of you guys that are just starting to get to know me, if there was a chance that you missed any of our prior work, my prior work, we have this campaign. So Elysian Fields received a lot of positive response, but one of the big things that we got hit on was our coloring. So I got a new colorist, and we already remastered the Zero issue as part of the Embrace, and now we're remastering Pyramid Gambit, and we're offering it alongside the rest of the Nine Realms catalog. So if you sign up for this mailing list, you will unlock upon launch a secret tier with a book only available to you guys. And so here's a look at the remastered edition of Pyramid Gambit. Very pretty. Avery Ferdinand, who we've brought in to do the color work on this, is just absolutely blown up the quality there. We have a Achilles versus Gilgamesh statue that'll be 8 inches on the campaign. That'll be more affordable for people. When I had initially introduced this statue as a tier on Pyramid Gambit, it was for a quarter scale statue that was close to $800, and that's a lot to ask from customers. So I did some shopping around, and I found somebody that could print it at a pretty affordable price at the 8 inches, and so we'll be offering that on the campaign. And then obviously we've got the Embrace, and we'll have some Embrace merch on there. The big thing that we have right now to showcase is the Embrace T-shirt, which has the art by Booty Juice, which is fantastic. So yeah, make sure that you guys are signed up. Don't miss out on that. I don't really think I have much else to go over with any of this. Oh, if you backed the Embrace, I know we are behind on fulfillment. It has been Murphy's Law with the printer here this past month. Literally every single thing that could go wrong went wrong. However, that is all behind us, I believe, at this point. He's got his new machine in, and he's supposed to be starting the actual print work here. He had sent me an initial sample to make sure that the print file was good. We had to fix up 1 or 2 pages, but everything else was looking really solid. But yeah, it's exciting stuff. And we're hoping to have these books out to you guys, start having these books out to you guys by early October. I know that I had initially said August on the campaign. No, actually, Dean has done everything right. Dean and Paul did a fantastic job of wrapping up the art. This has literally just been every snafu in the world with the printers. I'm using Hero and Villain Design, which is a small business that's U.S. based, and he's one dude, and he runs this print shop, and he does very high quality print work, and it's why I use him. I used him for the Elysian Fields issue 0 holofoil, and he does absolutely tremendous work, and I love working with him. He's a really good dude, and so he had ordered his replacement printer, and of course, the moment that happened, his old printer started to screw up a lot. It was having all kinds of issues, and then the new printer got caught up at customs because of everything going on. And it's been one thing after another, but the new printer was installed over the weekend. And he says that he's going to have a video sent to me very soon with a sample of the holofoil O'Reilly edition. So when I have that, you guys will know. I'll be making sure to send that out first to the Hugger mailing list of the Embrace. Next I'll probably reveal it on a stream or something. I do have to do a Patreon sketch card stream sometime soon because I owe our Patreon supporter that's at that tier a sketch card for this month and for October coming up. But yeah, Chris Falk says shipping has become a nightmare. He's like, yeah, no, it's a bloody mess. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. Click the subscribe, hit the bell, do what you got to do to stay tuned into Nine Realms Publishing. We've got a lot of stuff going on. Follow us on Twitter at Elysian Fields _0. We're going to be bringing a lot of exciting stuff to you this year, and there are some things in development that I can't talk about that are very exciting. And hopefully we'll have some updates for you on that here soon. So make sure that you guys come check us out. Thank you guys for being here today to chat with us about Michael Bancroft's The Lucent. And you guys have a good day. We'll catch you on the next one.